Hi, my name is Jill Poisson, and I'm the DM for Wardens of Sugen, and today I'm going to be taking you through a tutorial on how to use Inkarnate. Specifically, how to take existing maps you've worked on and actually bring them in Inkarnate and use that program to the fullest. So full disclosure, I have the pro commercial lease version of Inkarnate, so you may notice that I have some things that you don't have, but nonetheless this tutorial will still work for you. So, what we're going to do first is kind of show you why I'm actually transporting new maps to Inkarnate, which this may make sense to you. I've had a campaign world for about 16 years. The original map was hand-drawn by another DM, and it's actually a little different than it is now. And then it was digitized in Photoshop and then ultimately in Illustrator, which is what you're seeing here. It's a PNG file of the actual Illustrator map. And it's pretty big and intricate and has never really looked the way I wanted to. Like, I kind of have these cheesy mountains and forests, but they're just not exactly like the quality level that I've been looking for. So basically I decided to use Inkarnate. There's a lot of other map programs, but I really like it. And plus I'll be able to use the commercial lease since I'm actually publishing my campaign world and adventures in it. So that's kind of why I wanted to make it look better and also use something that I could use legally. So look, it's a big map. There's two main continents there. Then there's a couple larger islands that are also continents, kind of themselves, but much smaller. And then there's this just, I guess, almost a ballista spray of small islands. It's a lot of work to do. So my main focus was going and doing the slower island right here, which is Masan, and basically doing that continent first because I'll be streaming Wardens of Sugen, and that's the continent my players will be playing on. So that's what I'm kind of doing first. So, first thing I did was I changed my artboard in Illustrator and isolated just the continent Masan and some of the islands around it. If you notice there's a gray background, it's actually because it's an alpha channel. That's my personal preference that I'm doing, which makes it so I'm only going to be painting in where the actual island is, the continent. I don't have to worry about the sea and erasing all that. So I create a new map in Inkarnate. I'm doing the Pro, so I'm at that full size. And you see just the basic kind of layout. There's a water and it's empty. So what I'm going to do is go to the sculpting tool. It's at 64. I'm actually going to increase that. And I'm basically going to just paint this giant landmass. And that's where I approximately know that Masan is. There's the actual main continent, and then there's an island above it. So I'm going to catch this big area. There we go. Almost all completely painted in. That should cover pretty much the entire thing. I'm going to worry about the other islands later. So then what I did was go to the paint. This is the texture. And I actually brought in the PNG file that I exported from Photoshop of my full map for Masan as a texture. And so now you're about to see what happens. Oh, look at that. I'm painting my actual Illustrator work right into Inkarnate. It's actually pretty cool. Oh, I didn't quite catch it. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this entire Illustrator work in, and I'm going to actually cut it out before I decided to do this tutorial. I actually did a live stream of that, but we were a little laggy, so I decided that I would actually do a full tutorial, right? Put it on Twitch, and I'll also be putting it on my YouTube. Both of them are Warden Sugen, one at twitch.tv/Warden Sugen, and the other one is YouTube/Warden Sugen. There we go. And so because I didn't quite get all the terrain up here, just do that. Go back to the texture tool. And there it is. So now you're thinking, well, now I have this work that I don't like in this middle of this big giant blob, and that's actually not what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go back to the sculpt tool, and I'm going to go subtract, and I'm going to change this back to, we'll start with 64. So we just want to kind of cut out what we didn't use. There we go, and erase. Ooh. And it's okay if you mess up like I just did. I went a little too big with my brush over around that corner. Basically, we're gonna cut out pretty much all this land that we're not using. I just realized I didn't quite get that piece. So now that's a really, really rough cutout of the continent in Inkarnate. I'm gonna go back to that sculpting brush. Let's see what we can start doing. We can start getting into those little nooks and crannies. And really cut that deeper in. And you're gonna adjust things like that are gonna happen, like what is happening right there. But that's okay. As Bob Ross says, they're happy accidents. And you're gonna kind of cut into everything. You kind of understand the gist. You're gonna go smaller and smaller and smaller into your brush size. To kind of really get in close until you have your coastline the way you want it. This is where I am. I have the main continent all cut out. I'm working on that top area there, so let's do that. Now that we have the main continent and the larger upper island cut out, I'm going to do the little lakes and ponds. And I'm going to worry about the islands a little later, just because it's like a shotgun blast, kind of localized, so it'll be easier to cut those out once I have all the other little things done. So we'll go back in here, be back on the sculpt tool, make sure we're on subtract. We're going to make this pretty small because most of these are pretty small. And we'll zoom in and hit this area first. Make it a little smaller. Obviously for the lakes, I'm going to have to use different sizes as I go. And some things are changing a little bit, but it's no big deal. So we just have these lower ones down here. And I might add some more later. Alright, so that's all the little lakes and ponds. Now we're going to worry about getting those, all these little islands in. So it looks like most of them are kind of concentrated here, and then a few down there. So once again, we're going to take our scope tool, we're going to make it, put it back on add, make it circular still, and make it pretty big. So I'm going to refer back to this. There's one here, there. Right, that should cover most of them. If it doesn't, we can always add more space. So I'm going to go back to that texture. Let's see what we missed. So some over here. Those two there aren't too solid. Alright, so that's pretty much the majority of the islands. I can always add more or subtract them, but it's going to be the same kind of process as before. So make it pretty big. Subtract, just do a general cutout of what we don't need. Oops. There we go. See there, obviously I cut a little too much. Worry about that section later. Okay. Now we're going to start zooming in. Go from the top down. Alright, so that's all the islands cut out, the continent cut out, the large island above the continent cut out, and also the lakes. And I actually see some stuff up here. Race. So now we have a reproduction of our map. One of the things I'm going to do right now is just kind of color everything into a base texture. Make that pretty big. And we'll be able to add our mountains and our deserts in Inkarnate, make them look a lot better. I just want to unify the color of everything, and then I'll actually start going more into the map making itself in a later tutorial. But this is the tutorial I wanted to show on how to duplicate your map in Inkarnate. For those who either made maps in the earlier versions of Inkarnate or made maps in other programs like myself, where I used Photoshop and Illustrator to make mine. Instead of having to start from scratch, you can just recut it out. And although it does seem kind of laborious, and I apologize, I'm dyslexic, so I'm going to mispronounce words. Laborious. Ultimately, it's way faster than hand drawing my map. I'm never going to get as close as I did initially Inkarnate, doing it completely freehand, just going back and forth and, you know, looking at this and then trying to draw that here. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope you had a good tabletop day.